Hey, it's your boy Bubzkji, and here we've got Furia versus Astralis. I thought it was very interesting. They subbed in Bubzkji for the first time, I think, since Esatag has been around, since Glaive came back at the very least. And I actually predicted Furia to win this series, particularly because of Nuke. I have a video on it already. I think Xyp9x is pretty weak when it comes to ramp. I thought Furia would attack that and cause some problems. I did not predict Bubzkji would be subbed in. Did not predict that, but you're going to see Astralis really have a game plan around the way ramp is going to work here. Astralis is a team that's very willing to play nobody ramp, very willing to play two ramp, very willing to play device in ramp. And you can see this round they've got nobody in ramp. Bubzkji went quickly to lower. He's in the vent here to try to prevent this vent dive that Furia love to do. And this is a sort of 1v1 that Furia very well could have lined up to try to deal with Xyp9x. Bubzkji, much more in form, you would think, despite being out of it for a little while, he's definitely a bit of a more of an aimer player. And if someone drops down vents, a lot of the time that turns into obviously a 1 versus 1 towards lower. And Xyp9x could have been punished because I still don't think he's quite back on form. His aim isn't really there, and he's not doing what you really need to do when it comes to ramp control, which is when you're alone in ramp, you really want to be picking up one kill and dropping. That is like a very successful ramp hold. Xyp9x oftentimes picks up no kills or dies, no kills before dropping, or he dies. And only sometimes can he pick up one and drop, which is something you'll see Bubzkji do actually a few times. So if we head into the following round here, nothing too interesting actually happens. Bubzkji's just going to be holding it for a while. They're going to go lower, but you can see he's a little bit more aggressive. I've seen a round very similar to this from Xyp9x recently, and Bubzkji is very willing to take this aggressive engagement. Now, it might seem a little bit risky, however, up on that catwalk there, it's very long-range engagements. He's got quick support from Glaive having dropped down, which means anyone trying to swing from the bomb site is going to be dealt with. And even if he dies, he's really not going to be dropping his gun in any way that's retrievable. So there's very little downside to that engagement, just a lot of upside, going to get himself the round win. But you can definitely see, if you've watched Xyp9x on ramp recently, Bubzkji is very much more willing to take these sorts of engagements. And into the following round, I'm not going to show this whole round. Nothing really happens here, but you can see Bubzkji going quickly into lower. It's device holding on a ramp this time around. This is normal stuff from Astralis. They're very comfortable taking these types of paths, these types of routes, and they're really playing around with ramp in this game. I think a lot more so than usual. They double it quite often, and they solo it, or they leave it entirely somewhat often as well. So this time around, standard molly into the smoke. Smoke lands in place. If you watched my Xyp9x video, he missed his smoke at some point and actually got pretty heavily punished. The flash there just to try and listen to some noise and figure things out. And then he ends up into this setup over here with Glaive having rotated back over, and Glaive's going to be playing this angle jiggling that Xyp9x often liked to play back when he was before he took his break. Haven't seen him play it too often recently, though, but it's going to work into Bubzkji in this angle here. And this is another angle that I've actually seen Xyp9x just full whiff from, where, Fnatic swung in. I believe it was Fnatic swung in with pistols, and Xyp9x only got one. Bubzkji here, I mean, this is just kind of textbook. There's nothing too crazy about it, but you can absolutely rely on Bubzkji to win those sorts of duels, even with Glaive on 2 health. Glaive just playing the bait there, which is a really smart play. If you're expecting them to come back towards ramp, especially if they game planned around Xyp9x being the ramp player, that makes absolutely perfect sense. Then you got, again, another round here, and you can see Bubzkji pretty comfortable holding on to full utility. He's still got a smoke and a molly, which is what you really need if you want to delay any sorts of pushes. And again, this is something Xyp9x often wasn't doing because he couldn't really win those 1v1 duels, because he could kind of get punished. He absolutely would be tossing down that molly just about at the beginning of every round. Of course, Bubzkji's going to do the same because that's the safe thing to do, but I think he's holding on to them perhaps a little bit longer than you may have seen from Xyp9x. Then here, molly down, then the smoke, then holding ramp, he's going to do exactly what he needs to do. A quick kill on a K-Serato as, jumping around the corner. I believe that was Art jumping around that corner. K-Serato got killed. Bubzkji drops. Everything's fine. He's still willing to take that duel on ramp, and the team's going to clean things up. So he really just did his job there. That's really all you can expect from a ramp player. It's not going to be, ramp doesn't have too much interesting stuff going on, but I think there are some, obvious differences between Bubzkji and Xyp9x. And here you see somewhat of another one, the mid-round rotation into this setup. I've seen them in this setup before, and mid-round rotating into it is a little bit different than you might expect. Now, holding it here, Furia is going to come back, and Bubzkji's going to hear a sound cue and actually just miss a molly here somehow, or miss a nade. This nade actually bounces very oddly. It goes into the back of radio instead of where he meant it to be. But again, you've got a double up ramp here from Astralis. Something, very focused on ramp. They've doubled ramp on, just about as many rounds as they've soloed it so far. And they're really playing around it. They had Dupree and Magisk holding upper together, in a bit of a good setup. And then again, you've got this rotate over. They were doubling ramp. They got the quick kill, and now they're going back into a no ramp setup. So Bubzkji, much more able to rotate. If you're stronger on ramp, the basic concept is if they go ramp and you kill them every time you're there, you can be much lighter on your ramp holds. You see this when you look at Na'Vi when they hold on Mirage B side. They play only one B player at the start of the round on something like 50 to 60% of their rounds. So almost more often than they play 2B. However, if a team rushes B or does like a slight delayed B hit, and there's two players there, they are simply losing the round, right? Because their B hold is so effective. If their B hold was a bit less effective, then teams can move more into, well, even if there are two there, we're not guaranteed to lose the round, right? So if you have a really strong ramp hold, that allows these types of rotates to come in that, a weaker ramp hold wouldn't allow. And I think that happens a lot with Xyp9x. You don't see as many rotations away from ramp because it's a little bit more risky to rotate away, and teams can, move ramp a little bit more often when they have more consistent success. I mean, it's a lot of words for a fairly simple concept, but you definitely do see it utilized, especially by teams on B side. Mirage teams with, weaker holds have to play it doubled up more often. Teams with stronger holds play it doubled up a little bit less, and you see it here on ramp as well. So this time around, no kill from Bubzkji. They're putting a lot of pressure outer. He's considering the lower drop, but Glaive did it for him. So you might not see, perfectly crisp communication or perfectly crisp rotates. I'm not sure how long they've been practicing with Bubzkji. I would imagine this is actually a response to the fact that they've been quite weak on Nuke, and Furia are, a pretty strong Nuke team, right? So the rotate there wasn't quite on point, and it wasn't enough to cause any issues, but you could see potentially, just not a non-perfect rotate always does leave the opening to potentially have something go somewhat wrong. And you have another round here. We're only going to be looking at the first half, by the way, but another round here, nobody ramp, right? So they were playing 2 ramp. I believe they played 2 ramp 4 times now. Now they're going to play nobody ramp. Which is going to be the 3rd time they've played nobody ramp. So 10 rounds in, they've already changed things up very often, consistently showing different looks in different scenarios. And Bubzkji, when he does peek his head up there from vent, I think that could signal something to Furia. However, Furia is already kind of, they're already kind of committed on outer. There's not really much they can do on the ramp side. And again, it's a gamble if you make your way over to ramp. If someone's there, it's usually just a free kill. So this round, don't think much else interesting happens here. I think they just kind of win it. So if we head into the following round, again, they're going to open up 2 ramp this time around, but only 2 ramp for a moment. Only 2 ramp to make sure nothing crazy is happening. And if a vent drop happens in this type of 2 ramp setup, then you can have device hold ramp, and you would typically have Bubzkji be the lower rotate in that situation. So that type of 2-ramp setup can also help for that type of situation. Then here, 2v1, I like the way this is played. Bubzkji's actually going to rotate his way around outer. And so when Henny goes upper, he's looking around confused where Astralis is. If he had gone lower, Device would have been able to pick up the free kill. And if he goes upper, Bubzkji's on this really nice flank here. If Henny went into lobby, he would just be dead. Essentially, it would be really tough to actually sniff this flank out. And so this flank works very well. And then you've got Device making some noise in heaven here, drawing the eyes of Henny pretty heavily. And then he's going to throw a flash as Bubzkji peeks out. Really nice coordination between the two. Understanding, obviously, didn't really need to be holding on to upper there because they were so set up in positions to make an upper retake happen and really isolate angles to make it very awkward for Henny to play out the 2v1. But now we've got another round where this time Device is going to be solo holding ramp. Doesn't go quite as well. They do go for the rush, so, kind of that's the deal with that's the problem sometimes if you don't have anybody ramp or you solo ramp with an op. You can sometimes run into that. And they kind of caught him jumping around those corners. Device couldn't get the kill. Then you've got a quick rotate into a fairly heavy ramp setup here. Bubzkji can pretty easily pivot. Then you've got only one player upper with Magisk lower and Device lower as well. But Bubzkji's going to do more than his job here. He gets the 1 kill. I think he did the damage onto Yuri here. And I love this little rotate he goes for back up into heaven. However, you can see Yuri is one step ahead. He knows exactly what's going on and gets the free kill. Nice little play there by Yuri. And I think this is another round Furia win, isn't it? No, actually, they lose this one. But nice little play there by Yuri to take down Bubzkji. But the weaker ramp hold gets, taken down there by Astralis, or by Furia. And then Astralis have to play their way out, which they do a good job of as well. And here you're going to see this time around, Bubzkji, quick drop because he knows they're on pistols. He knows they're rushing straight down on him. And he's going to pick up 1 before dying. Hopefully you'd prefer him to see pick up 1, then drop, then pick up 1 and die. That would be more of like an optimal hold. But when it comes to rushes like that, if you haven't dropped a molly towards ramp early, those types of rushes are really tough to actually deal with. And, that's why you had Device open up a lot of rounds there. I think they expected Furia to have a game plan that was fairly heavy towards ramp. And so they were doubling it up often, but it doesn't matter really if you have a game plan where you're more heavily prioritizing ramp. You can't just double ramp every round when they're not going. So sometimes it does end up being like, this round we're going to double it. And if they don't rush it, then, maybe you just unlucko, basically unlucko. But this round, the quick vent to lower drop from csgo, that's exactly what I was thinking that, Xyp9x might not be comfortable with. Xyp9x might lose those types of engagements, whereas Bubzkji more likely to be winning that type of engagement himself. However, with Glaive already dead and, csgo in such an aggressive position, he couldn't really take that engagement to begin with, had to just give it up and back his way off. And they just saved for the last round of the half. And I don't think anything interesting happens in this round either. No, it was just Bubzkji soloing ramp early with that deagle. And that's going to be the half. But I think you can definitely see a bit of a game plan for Astralis on this map. They likely expected Furia to be playing fairly heavy towards ramp on that T side. They sub in Bubzkji. They have a lot of double ramps. They have a few empty ramps, just completely leaving it. They have a few, I think 3 times Device soloed it with an op. They definitely had a bit of a rotation around there in ramp. And I think that is something that threw Furia off a lot. It's really, again, the main reason I thought Furia had a pretty good chance to win this series was because I thought they would isolate Xyp9x on ramp. Well, it's not possible if Xyp9x isn't playing, is it?